Okay. Good evening, everyone. Okay, we're doing the third session of the discussion of the Akedah. It's the third discussion, and this time we're going to go into the liturgy, the piyutim that we say on Rosh Hashanah and during the Selihot, and we're going to compare two piyutim that are both in the Sephardic tradition. One of them is sung just before the Tkiyot of Rosh Hashanah. It's called Akedah v'Ni'ikad v'Mizbeach, and it was written by Rabbi Yehuda ben Shmuel ibn Abbas, who
what year, Rabbi?
It's here on the page. It says we know that he died at around 1167.
Where he was from, Syria?
He was born in Fez, actually. Yeah, it was Al-Fasi. He was born in Fez, and later on, because of persecutions in Morocco, he moved to Aleppo.
We don't have Abbas. That's a good name.
No, Abbas is an Arabic name.
No, we don't have in Morocco.
No, not anymore. You don't know. You also don't have in Morocco Labrat, but Rabbi Dunash ibn Labrat, which was the first Hebrew poet of the new age, of the new golden age, was also from Morocco. The Roikra was from Morocco, and his wife was also a poet. We have poems that she wrote. She sent letter to her husband. I don't know. They found him in the Geniza. In any case, let's look at this piyut. It's a beautiful piyut. There are different tunes. The tune that I know, I'm going to.
I have the text I can bring. I have sheets.
Here. Yeah. And we're not going to go over the whole text. It's a beautiful text. But okay, it starts. I'll just give you the way it is sung in Yerushalayim. We sing it like that. بأحر تنوسا بصوف عصارا هبين أشر نولاد لخامسارا إمنا فشيخ أبو عاد بعونك شارا كما علي ولي لعلا بارا, and so on. This is Akedah v'Ni'ikad v'Mizbeach is a refrain. We keep going back to Akedah v'Ni'ikad v'Mizbeach, which means the one who bounds, the one who is being bound, and the altar, the Mizbeach. So the focus of the piyut is on the father, Abraham, his son Yitzhak, and the location of the Akedah. Now, already in the beginning, in the first stanza, we read this: at the end of the 10 trials, he was tested. This is according to rabbinic tradition, the Midrash, that Abraham was tested, who had to endure 10 trials. So the Abraham has to endure 10 trials, and the Akedah is the last and the most difficult of them. As a matter of fact, the only time in the Torah when we find the word Nisa in the sense of Nisayon is at the Akedah. So one could say that truly in the sense of a Nisayon, the only one that we have is the Akedah. But in any case, what the interesting thing that we find here in this piyut is that right at the beginning, the poet brings us into the question of the missing link in this whole story, which is Sarah. It says, "Haben asher nolad lecha mi Sarah," the son whom Sarah bore to you. Im nafshecha bo ad mo'od nikshara, even though you love him so much. Kuma aleu li le'ola bara, rise, and we see that the word to rise, to get up, which connotes movement, appears several times in the piyut. It says, Kuma aleu li le'ola bara, go and bring him as a pure sacrifice. Amar, so in the next stanza we read, Amar le Sarah, ki hamudech Yitzhak, gadal velo lamad avodat shahak. אלך והורהו לו אשר לא אלחק. אמרה לך אדון אבל תרחק, ענה היא ליבך באל בוטח. So not only the poet mentioned Sarah, now he presents a dialogue between Abraham and Sarah. which does not exist in the Torah, right? In the Torah,
Not even-
Abraham gets up in the morning, takes his son, takes his 2 lads, and goes to the land of Moriah. Here, he comes and talks to Sarah. So this already brings into focus the question of how do you consider the implications of your act? Abraham does not live in a vacuum. Sarah is around him. If he's going to sacrifice Yitzhak, Sarah is going to suffer. Did he consider her? Was she part of the equation? Was she part of the trial? All these questions now are presented by the poet. He says, Amar le Sarah. Now Abraham has to come up with the pretext of taking Yitzhak away. Remember that we said that according to the pshat of the pasuk, Yitzhak is not 37 years old. And the poet here, Rabbi Yehuda ben Shemuel, is of the same opinion that he's not an adult, he's not a mature person, he's a kid. So for Abraham to take him away from Sarah, imagine how is it for a mother who has one son and she's always hovering around him, always takes care of him, and all of a sudden the father says, I need to take him on a trip, on a field trip. Which field trip? I have to show him the korbanot, according to that, Asher lo el hak, how to bring sacrifices. She says, it's a little dangerous, be careful. This is what she says.
Rabbi, the reality was that she didn't take it very well. If immediately after that is Sarah.
So we don't know in reality what happened. Sammy comments that she passed right away. Right, that's what we were taught, that she died as a result of the Akedah. Rashi says that she died as a result of the Akedah. That she was told, and we'll see later. But the pshat of the pasuk, the psukim don't say anything. What happened to her? Abraham finishes the Akedah. He goes to Beersheba. Later on, many years later, Sarah dies in Kiryat Arba. So we could say that they never spoke again, that she moved to Kiryat Arba, but we don't know. But according to the Piyut, this is the take of Rabbi Yehuda ben Shemuel on the story. He looks at it as, now Abraham has some explaining to do. He has to convince Sarah that he wants to take Yitzhak away for a trip, and she's not going to see him for a while. And he's actually lying. If you think about what he's saying, it's a lie. Hashem did not tell him to teach him avodah, the service of God. He's going to sacrifice him. He's not telling the truth. So this is the question. By not telling the truth, is this what Abraham was supposed to do? Or was he supposed to tell her, this is what I'm doing? In any case, the Paitan adds this, Amra, lecha adon, aval al tirhak. She said, go, master. Go. Okay, I understand. But don't go too far. Her heart, a mother's heart, she already feels worried. What's going to happen to him? What does he answer? Ana yehi libech be'el boteach. He said, trust God. It's a survey of a parv, neutral answer. It doesn't say, I'm going to protect him. It doesn't say, I'm going to make sure that no harm befalls him. He says, yeah, trust God. So in a way, you see how the Paitan creates this tension here. It's not just Abraham is being told to take Yitzhak. No, now Abraham has to face Sarah to pry Yitzhak from her arms, to give her a good excuse for that. And now he also has to think, what will he say when he comes back? So let's go back to the text and see what we find there in the text. So the Paitan goes on to say, they went to engage together in service. They are together, they're on the same page. This is the original text of the Torah. They went together. And now Yitzhak speaks to his father. Avi, my father, emphasis on Avi, you are my father. See the fire and firewood? Where my master is the lamb which is required by law. Now what is the I always used to read this pasuk when I was a kid. Reading this, it's just the same sense of wonder that we have in the Torah. Here's the fire, here's the wood, where's the lamb? But the Paitan added another line. What does he say? Have you abandoned your faith? Double entendre. Yeah, what is he telling him? What are you shocheach? What are you forgetting?
The lamb.
You forget. Well, you're forgetting the sacrifice, but he tells him something else. Are you forgetting that you're not supposed to kill me? This is the subliminal message. The Paitan doesn't say ha'ad b'yom zeh details shocheach. You're forgetting the details of the halacha. You forget the foundations of your religion, of your faith. The techa shocheach. You forgot the whole thing. He says you're going to do one act which is going to undermine your whole faith, your whole theology. Very powerful message of the Paitan. Let's go back to the text and see now the next stanza what the Paitan writes. Vaya'ane aviv ki hu asher yir'eh le'olah haseh. Nivne hayom beni hayom lefanav kiseh. There's a line that's missing here in the Hebrew. Az ya'amir zevach v'az zoveach. So his father answered, he will choose the lamb. Know that he does as he wishes. Hashem does whatever he wants. Like we are just pawns in his hands. So Avraham is being shown as one who's completely submissive to the divine will. He has no choice. So maybe it's criticism on behalf of the Paitan. He says, Avraham would like to opt out. According to this author, at least, we'll see that not all authors thought the same. But according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Shemuel, Avraham would have liked to opt out. Avraham would have liked to say no, but he cannot because he is completely bound to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to God. And he says, Nivne beni hayom lefanav kiseh. We will build a throne for him today. So note, it doesn't say, the Paitan doesn't say, we will build a mizbeach. No, he says we will build a kiseh. We will build a throne for him. It's something completely different. Again, this is the Paitan is saying Avraham wishes that he would not have to sacrifice his son. That the mizbeach, the altar, which is a place of fire, will turn out to be just a throne, just a seat for God. And then the last phrase in Hebrew, which is missing, Az ya'amir zevach v'azoveach. So I translated, then the slaughtered and the slayer will be elevated. The word ya'amir in Hebrew is also related to the word amir in Arabic, which means prince. The top of the tree in Hebrew is called amir. So as ya'amir zevach v'azoveach mean the sacrifice and the one who sacrifices, which is Abraham, will be elevated. But another meaning, it's the whole piyut here is full of subliminal messages and second layers. The other meaning is of Ya'amir is a wordplay on the word Yamir. Lo Yamir tov ve'ra ve'ra betov. When one wants to exchange a sacrifice for another sacrifice, the word used is Yamir. So he says, Az Ya'amir zevach v'azovech. Maybe Hashem Velo Yamir dato le'olamim bezulato. Hashem will never exchange his dat for something else, his faith.
What you do with the bank when you
download Hamara, right? Hamarat ksafim. It's called lehamir ksafim. It's to exchange money. So he says he's alluding maybe Hashem will Ya'amir zevach v'azovech. Maybe he will replace me for you. Saying Avraham is saying, I am willing to die for you. I wish I would be the one who had to die and not my son. Or he says maybe Hashem will forgo the whole thing and will let someone else or something else be sacrificed, as eventually really happened. So we go back to the text and look what we read here in line 5 in page 1. דפקו בשערי רחמים לפתוח הבן להיזבח והאב, again it's a typo, והאב לזבוח Kovim la'el uverachamav livtoach. So they knock on the gates of mercy. Very meaningful. They knock on the gate of mercy, meaning they want forgiveness. They don't want to be, he doesn't want to do the sacrifice. All through this mizmor, and we'll see that when we go to the Ashkenazi piyut, the one that is written in Germany, is the exact opposite. It's unbelievable how you take one story in the Torah, two people who are contemporary. Rabbi Yehuda ben Shmuel ben Abbas died around 1167, and the author of the next piyut that we'll see, Rabbi Haim of Regensburg, died in 1175. 8 years between them. Contemporaries living in Europe, one in Spain, one in Morocco and later in Aleppo, and one in Germany. Totally opposed perspectives. According to Rabbi Yehuda ben Shmuel ibn Abbas, Abraham wishes to be exempt, to be absolved of this duty, and when they come to pray to Hashem, they come knocking on the gates of mercy, meaning, please have mercy on us. Please make sure that one of us doesn't die today. They trust in Hashem and they rely on His mercy. Meaning they're hoping for an exit of the last minute. Now we read this in line 6, and it's just excerpt from the piyut, it's not the whole piyut. He prepared the wood fire, meaning he's setting the place where the sacrifice will be made, be'on v'hayil, with strength and might. But again, the Paitan, with his mastery of the Hebrew language, is playing with words, because the word on in Hebrew means strength, as in the beginning of Parashat Ki Tetzeh, ki hu reshit ono, lo mishpat ha-bechora, is the beginning of his strength, but it also means sorrow, as with Rachel, who calls Binyamin Ben Oni, the son of my sorrow. So on in the Tanakh has the meaning of sorrow and strength. So the Paitan says he builds the Mizbeach Be'on V'chayil, with strength and sorrow. Mixed feelings. Vayhi me'or yomam, and now when he binds Yitzhak, just as one would bind a ram, Vayhi me'or yomam be'inam layl, the light of day turned for them to night, to darkness. So they're not doing the Akedah with this complete commitment, with complete joy and excitement and enthusiasm. It's the darkness of night. It's a terrible situation. V'hamon dema'av nozlim b'chayil. They're streaming tears. Ayin b'mar bucha v'lev sameach. Maybe this phrase, more than anything else in this mizmor, in this piyut, shows the dichotomy, the ambiguous feelings that they have. Ayin b'mar bucha, the eyes are crying, the heart is joyful. On one hand, they want to do what Hashem said. On the other hand, they know the consequences for Sarah, for themselves, very difficult. Now, this verse 7 and 8 is the greatest contribution of Rabbi Yehuda ben Shmuel ben Abbas to the biblical narrative. Because in the biblical narrative, Yitzhak does not talk to Abraham. After the first question, where is the lamb? He doesn't talk to him anymore. He's passive. We read that Abraham binds him and puts him on top of the firewood, and that's it. Both Rabbi Yehuda, the Sephardic poet, and Rabbi Ephraim, the German Ashkenazi poet, added a dialogue between Abraham and Yitzhak, but it's completely different. According to Rabbi Yehuda, what is the dialogue? What does Yitzhak tell Abraham? And in the Yerushalmi Nusach, when they get to this part, everybody stops, and the Hazan sings this part with a very mournful tune. It goes like this. Well, maybe we'll translate first, and then for the people who don't read the Hebrew. Sihu le'imi ki sesonah pana. He says, please tell my mother that her joy has gone. Her joy has fled. הבן אשר ילדה ל-90 שנה, the son whom she bore at the age of 90, no, that's a typo, היה לאש ולמאכלת מנה, was consumed by fire and by the devouring knife. The word ma'achelet, by the way, is used in the Torah, not sakin. It's important to see also how the utensil that is used for the sacrifice is described. Rabbi Haim describes it as ma'achelet, just like in the Torah, which is the devouring knife. It's negative. It's a knife that eats through the flesh. It's destructive. Ulma'achelet mana. Mana is a portion of food, meaning Yitzhak says, I'm being treated as if I were an animal that whose meat is going to be consumed. Ana emtzala menachem ana. Where can I find comfort for my mother? Tsar li le'em tivke v'tityapeach. I feel sorrow for my mother who is going to cry and weep. And in Yerushalayim we read this like this. Sihu le'mi kisesona pana הבן אשר ילדה ל-90 שנה. You can feel when the Hazan reads it, what Yitzhak is saying. But who is Yitzhak talking to? When he says, Sihu le'imi, talk.
Give a message to my mother.
In plural. Yeah, so Al Panav, superficial reading, if you read, it just say, whoever hears me, please deliver the message to my mother. Or maybe to the angels. Who else is he talking to? Who else is present there?
Father.
His father. What does he tell his father? You now, you put me on the fire, you're going to do the shehita. My flesh is going to be consumed by fire, and you're done. Now starts the difficult part. Now you will have to go to my mother. You will have to tell her that the joy of her life is gone. No, there's no greater pain than that of a bereaved parent. To go tell my mother that the son is gone.
Not only that, but he would have shown that he had lied to her.
Right. Tell her that you lied to her. Tell her that you did this to me. Think of who can comfort her. Will you comfort her? See how powerful this criticism here is from Yitzhak to his father, but also from the Paitan to the whole understanding of Akedah. He says, you are going to carry out an act that you think Hashem told you to do. But did you think about the human consequences? You're going to talk to Sarah. Ana emtzala menachem. Ana, where? Who will comfort her? He tells Abraham, you should know, every day of your life from now on, you will have Sarah. Just like we know later on with Yaakov, that he was mourning for Yosef. I will go with him mournful to the netherworld. All his children try to comfort him. He has all the other children. Not enough. So now, Yitzhak tells Abraham, you better prepare yourself to what you are going to now to experience, to take care of. And then he drives it more home. My words cry out from the devouring knife. Make it sharp. It doesn't say why. The original Midrash says make it sharp so the korban will not be pasul, that the sacrifice will not be disqualified. But maybe it means just make it painless as fast as possible. Ve'et ma'asari hazek, and bind me tight. I don't want to feel any pain. Ve'et yekad yekod bifsari, and as the fire consumes my flesh, kach imecha hanishar me'afari, take whatever is left from my ashes. Ve'emor lesara ze leyitzhak reach. Bring it to Sarah and say, this is the fragrance of Yitzhak. This is like, when people read it in the Bet Knesset, some places people read it, and they all go with the tune Amar le'Avraham Adon Shamayim Adina, and they go to this and they get to this part and they sing Mima achelet yeme midbari nachad davi ve'et masari hazek ve'et dekode bifsari. We're missing the whole point. This has to be sung with
I mean,
serenity.
It should really not be read in unison.
Not in unison, right?
It's a powerful emotional.
Right.
It's almost the peak of the emotional.
Right. It's the peak, I think, of the emotional experience of Rosh Hashanah.
And there has to be the Chazan. They
Right.
can answer
Yes.
the verse at the end.
Right.
People can answer, but it cannot be rendered if it's read in.
I agree. It's when we all read it together, and it's really with a tune like that, it loses the power of the of that dialogue, because now you realize how powerful is this dialogue. Yitzhak tells Abraham, first of all, you have to face my mother, and you know what? If you want to come and tell her, yeah, I took your son for a walk, and here is what I came back with. With Efer, show it to her. Yitzhak is telling, now Yitzhak puts Abraham in the most difficult dilemma. He says, who are you more faithful to? To God or to your love for my mother and to your son? And if you say God, it doesn't end there. You could say, yeah, but God commanded me. If you say God, think, would God want you to cause such pain to my mother? Now, yes.
No, I'm just thinking aloud. But I don't remember that there is a resolution here.
No.
It doesn't say that Hashem said, that don't.
Oh no,
do
in
that.
this period, yes, there is. It says, Amar le'Avraham Adon Shamayim,
right.
Al tishlech hayad el sheli shuraim. All the angels cry and they ask Avraham. Right.
I have a question about
Yes.
this like that.
Yes.
It's very sad.
It's very, very sad. Yeah, and you mentioned this morning something about him, an important detail. Okay, so the son of Rabbi Yehuda ben Shemuel ibn Abbas, the author of this piyut, converted to Islam. And
the author,
the son of the author, the son of the
And
author,
his father begged him.
and his father traveled after him, and he begged him to come. But now, I know a lot of some scholars think that the way he looks at the Akedah is the way he mourns for his son, that he lost him. But I think that I think differently. I think that the son converted to Islam because he felt tired of all the persecutions, and he did not buy the ideology of dying for God. This is the danger. Kivyachol.
Islam is dying for God.
Right. Back then, not at that time. At that time, if you went with Islam, you did not die for God. So
Now we die for 72.
yeah, but it is very possible. It's very probable that the son of Rabbi Yehuda ben Shemuel, who grew up with this mentality of you don't have to die for God, said, okay, I'm going to take it one step further, and I don't want to be part of this religion, which in some areas promotes martyrdom. There's a possibility. Now we're going to move to the next. So now we're going to make the comparison. This is a comparative analysis of another piyut, which is also in the Sephardic liturgy. We read it on Selihot every day.
Rabbi, next question. Is the Ashkenazim are using this?
I don't know.
Never saw it.
I don't know if they use it. I don't think they use it. No, Imafes Rova Aken. Now, Imafes Rova Aken is a piyut. Yes.
I never saw it.
If you don't mind, sorry.
Yeah.
The son, they came after Rambam, didn't they?
Yes.
But Rambam had already.
No, they're more or less contemporaries. Yeah.
So they didn't know about Rambam's position on conversion to
No,
Islam.
I think it was known. The Rambam's position on conversion to Islam, which he didn't see as a capital sin, and
That's
I think
important.
that's part of the whole mentality in the Sephardic world, which said, don't die for God, but rather try to preserve your life so you could live for God. So now,
As long as it's not Avodah Zarah.
as long as it's not Avodah Zarah. Yes. Okay. So very quick recap for those who join us now. What we went through the piyut Akedah Mizbeach, which was written by Rabbi Yehuda ben Shemuel ibn Abbas, who was born in Fez and then moved to Aleppo. And in this piyut, his take of the Akedah is very, very personal. He focuses on the relationship between Sarah, Abraham, and Yitzhak. And he shows that in order to take Yitzhak for the Akedah, Abraham had to lie to Sarah, avoiding the consequences of facing her. And that at the height of the Akedah, when Yitzhak is already bound and put on the Mizbeach, Yitzhak tells his father, okay, I'm gone, but you are now going to have to face mom. You are going to explain to her where I'm gone, and maybe you should take a little bag with my ashes and show it to her. So he really intensifies the dilemma for him. Now we're moving to another country, which is Germany. This piyut, the next piyut, was written by Rabbi Haim Ovadia of Regensburg in Germany, who lived during the height of the Crusades, 1110 to 1175. And is this also just excerpts from the piyut? In the third or fourth line of the piyut goes like this: Kahna ben Yakir v'nimtza damo al kir. This, as I said, is also sung in the Sephardic tradition. The tune that we usually use in Selihot is the first words are imafes rova aken. So we sing imafes rova aken oel shiken imreken alan oveda ki alken yesh lanu zaken. Also some of a mournful tune. Okay, so the original word imafes rova aken means if we have already there's no one left in the nest. Oel shiken, the tent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is now empty. Al-nan oveda ki alken, let us not perish, because we have an elderly father. Now in this piyut, every stanza ends with a pasuk from the Torah. So in this case, but it's the choice of pasukim is also interesting. So the first stanza, which is here in line 1, starts with the words that Hashem commanded Abraham, Kahna ben Yakir, take your beloved son. But what he's being told to do with him is very graphic. V'nimtza damo al kir. It's a pasuk taken from Leviticus, from Vayikra, a pasuk that describes the what is called the olat ha'of, the way a bird, turtle doves are sacrificed. And over there the Torah says, v'nimtza damo al kir hamizbeach. You have to extract the blood on the wall of the altar. Very graphic. They have to take the bird and push it on the wall of the mizbeach and let the blood drip. It's some graphic delight in the details of this sacrifice. So now, what does Abraham do when he's being told to do that? The Paitan says, "Ratz el anar le'akdisho." This is not in the Torah. Ratz, Abraham ran to the lad to sanctify him, and his soul was intertwined with the lad's soul. So, with Abraham, unlike, remember that in the first piyut we saw hesitance, we saw hesitation, we saw reluctance. Here, everything is done with great rush. Ratz el anar. He runs to the lad to do what? Lehakdisho, double meaning in Hebrew, to prepare him, but also to sanctify him. Now, line number 3 is the most telling from when we spoke about the visual imagery that we're going to find in this piyut. Aitero ba'etzim ve'isho nezer Elohav al rosho. Now, if you recall in the original pasuk in the Torah, vayikach Avraham et ha'esh ve'et ha'ma'achelet vayasem al Yitzhak beno. Sorry, vayikach Avraham et atzei ha'olah vayasem al Yitzhak beno vayikach be'ado et ha'esh ve'et ha'ma'achelet. Avraham puts the firewood on Yitzhak. The boy carries his own firewood, probably as a bundle, probably on his shoulder. And Abraham takes the fire and the knife. So when we say that Abraham takes the fire and the knife, so how does he take the fire? Probably he holds it as a torch or something like that, right? But the poet says something different. He says, he crowned him with firewood. The word le'ater, atara is a crown. So, aitero ba'etzim, he crowned him with firewood. Meanwhile, the isho, the fire is in Abraham's hands, right? Nezer Elohav al Rosho. It's a pasuk that taken from the description of the Nazir in Sefer Devarim, Sefer Bamidbar. The fire is also a crown. Crown for whom? For Abraham, because Abraham is the one carrying the fire. The knife is not mentioned. Now, what is interesting in this description? Yitzhak is crowned with firewood. Abraham is crowned with fire. Any associations here? Okay, I'm talking about visual imagery from medieval art, maybe. Who is described usually with the crown made from branches?
The king of the Jews.
Jesus. If you look at all the description in right, thorns, right, a crown of thorns, which is also mentioned in the Talmud in Masechet Bava Batra. It's like a favorite, probably torture method of the Roman emperors, to crown someone with thorns or with a porcupine's hide to cause pain. But isn't it interesting that remember that we spoke in the first class about the idea of martyrdom in Germany, Jews who lived in the thick of European Catholicism, that not only they knew of the theology, but also they saw the imagery on the walls of the churches. Wherever they went, they saw the images in mosaic, in marble, in metal. It was all over. Very visual. What do they see? They see the utmost, the greatest sacrifice of one sacrificing his life for God, the crucifixion. And Jesus is described as someone wearing a throne of thorns, a crown of thorns. And here the Paitan describes Yitzhak as wearing a crown of branches. This is, I think, it cannot be more direct than that. Even though it took me many years to stumble on that, because I just read the Hebrew to realize there's something there.
The crown of his God.
The crown of his God, right? Ve'isho nezer elav. Okay, so the nezer elav is taken from the pasuk in Sefer Bamidbar. Nezer elav al rosho, the crown of his God. But when you think of the fire as a crown, that's also a common image in the church art. The halo of the saints, and the saint is usually someone who died as a martyr. So here you have side by side going Avraham and Yitzhak, and the German Jewish poet sees them as, not God forbid, there's no idolatry here, but it is a payback. It is a counterattack on Christianity, showing them, you think that you are the only ones who can die for God? We can too. This is a compensation for what we didn't have, and now we come and say, no, we can do it also. Here's my hero, Yitzhak, crowned with, and by the way, this goes really to the early Midrash, when the Midrash says this is like someone carrying his own cross. But it was picked up by the German Jewish poet, and he says that. Let's go back to the text again and look at it to see that it's there. So it says, he crowned him with firewood, and his fire, the crown of his God on his head. So this is part of what we could call the inferiority complex of Jews in Europe, feeling that they're not doing enough for God. So here, through the Akedah, they could say, we did just as much as you did. The next verse.
They also talk about crown.
Yes, but over there is the crown of God. Here is the crown of the individual. Yeah. Akedah, right. נכון. יחיד וקל כצבי ענה ואמר אבי, הנה האש והעצים נביא, ותשועין לאבי, the only son, light-footed as a deer, raised his voice and said, my father would bring fire and firewood, but there's no offering. Here, the important thing is that Yahid Hukal Katsevi, he is also excited. He wishes to do that, in complete contradiction to what we saw in the original Piyut, where there's, like I said, reluctance. He answered him with calming words, saying, my son, God will choose for himself, and God will make known who is his. Like I said, every stanza ends with a pasuk from the Torah. This stanza, V'yoda Adonai et asher lo, is taken from Parashat Korach. When Korach challenges Moshe, and Moshe says, tomorrow Hashem will show who is the one whom he chose to be near him. So what Abraham is telling Yitzhak here, not only in the words of the Tanakh, Elohim yireh lo aseh le'olah b'ni, God will choose the sacrificial lamb, but also God will show who deserves to be near him. Meaning that the sacrifice elevates someone to this level of being near God. So again, this is the view of the Akedah as something very very elevated, an amazing sacrifice. Yes.
The language is the only son. And so my question is, Abraham had more than one son.
Right.
So,
Yes, I repeat the question. So why is it called Yahid? So this is based on the pasuk Kahna et bincha et yahidecha asher ahavta. So in a sense, both of them, each one of them was an only son. One was the only son from Hagar. One is the only son from Ishmael. But the poet here maybe decided to use the word Yahid in order to exclude Ishmael, because this already comes. We're talking about the 12th century, where Judaism, there was a bitter fight between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam on who is God's only son. So to say Yahid, we are the only son. And the next verse follows suit with the same thing. B'mitzvatcha shenehem nizarim v'acharecha lo meharerim hashu v'alchu nimarim al hadarim. They are both careful to observe your law. They will not question you, God. They rushed and walked quickly on one of the mountains. We see that the concept of doing things in a rush, expeditiously, is constant here, and they both are on the same page. Unlike what we saw again in the previous piyut, where there's a dispute or an argument between Abraham and Yitzhak tries to bring Abraham into the picture for him to understand what will be the consequence of his act. Then we read in line 7, Miharu atzei olah yachad be'ava kelula yasheru or yisheru ba'arava mesila. So they carry together the firewood, and together with wholesome love, yasheru ba'arava mesila. And that definitely echoes. That's from the Navi Yeshayahu, right? About the redemption. So they paved the path. So again, there are all allusions. All of the piyutim are very deep, because when the poet borrows a phrase from this or that book, he also looked at it in its context. So when he quotes this pasuk, Yesheru ba'arava mesila, it's from the Perek in Yeshayahu that speaks about the redemption. Yesheru ba'arava mesila le'Eloheinu. That when Mashiach comes, so the poet sees the Akedah as an act that paves the way for the coming of Mashiach, which, by the way, we'll see other poetry about the Akedah, was a great frustration for the generation of the Crusades and the one right after the Crusades, because they complained. The poets wrote words such as, "We brought thousands of sacrifices, and why have you ignored us?" They thought that by committing 1 or 2 or 1,000 akedot, God will heed their call, and they were extremely disappointed.
How could there's something like that when Isaiah or the Nevi'im says, your sacrifices are not going to help. God does not look for.
So it's true. It's a good question. What Sammy is now bringing up is, how could they ask this question, why our sacrifices were not answered when all the Nevi'im.
Only too fast.
Right. So there are 2 elements here. One, that really, I think, we as Jews have seriously missed the whole point of the Tanakh. The Torah, from the beginning, is trying to deliver the message that God does not need sacrifices. The Akedah is a message that God does not need human sacrifices. The the detailed description of the sacrifices in the desert is meant only to show us that even all the sacrifice in the world and this little process doesn't work, because then Shemuel comes and says, "Halo shemoa mizevach tov, leakshiv mizevach elim." It is better to listen to Hashem than to bring sacrifices. Yeshayahu says in chapter 58, I don't need those fasts. I don't need your sacrifices. I don't need you to tear your clothes. I need you to tear your heart.
Yeah, but it's a means to an end, the sacrifice. It's not supposed to be an end in itself.
Right. So the sacrifices were always a means and not the end. And again, I will go back to the pasuk, the famous pasuk from Micah, chapter 6, verses 7 and 8. What is it that Hashem wants? It's not alfei nahalei shemen. It's not rivers of oil and mountains of flesh and rams and young calves. No. Asod mishpat, avat chesed, do justice, do loving kindness, and be modest with God. That's one part of the equation. The other part is they understood the victims of the Crusades and those who committed suicide. They understood that Hashem does not want animal sacrifices, but they thought that human sacrifices, not in the sense of this, they didn't think of it as a human sacrifice. They thought of it as a spiritual sacrifice. They thought, here we are now, our soul clings to God. It's the highest thing that one could do, and yet Hashem does not listen to us. Right? And there were conversions following the Crusades. There was frustration. There was disappointment. I want to finish this piyut because we still have, but that we'll keep for next time, to see 3 alternative endings for the Akedah that suggest that in one way or another a sacrifice has been made. But I don't think we'll have time to cover it today. So I'll go to the psukim, and then Stanley, I know you have a question. So yeah. 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 No, you have a shaila. Yeah, go ahead.
I find a conflict with God not wanting sacrifices when so much of the Torah details the very intricacies of the sacrifice.
Yes.
That I've always found a conflict.
Yes. Okay, that is a topic for another discussion. I'll repeat the question. That on one hand, I said God does not want sacrifices, but there are so many pesukim dedicated not only to the sacrifices, but also to the construction of the location where the sacrifice will be made, especially taking into account that this was a contemporary abode. It was not meant to last forever, the Mishkan. So this is a good question.
I have an answer.
You have an answer, Sammy? Yes.
The first sentence of the book of Leviticus says, Adam ki akriv. At that time, from the eternity, from Adam, that was his expression of bring sacrifice.
Right.
Now Leviticus says, Adam ki akriv. You want to bring sacrifice?
Yes.
You want.
Let me.
The Torah
Right.
doesn't ask you to.
Right. So it's true that it's a no. What's right? So the truth is somewhere between you two. Sam is saying that it is our nature to bring a, right?
From
Like
Adam.
even people who love each other will sacrifice things that sometimes have there's no gain for the other side, right? To do that. Even even when a boy wants to or a man wants to say to his loved one, right? I love you, right? And he sets out the whole stage. It's not just for his male ego. He wants to show her that he took time and effort, right? And she could say, okay, how much did it cost you? It took you a day of your life. How much is your day? How is it? Okay, just put $300 in my account. It's okay. No, we want to see the sacrifice, but it's a sacrifice of love. So Sami, what you're saying is right. But what Stanley's saying is also correct, that it's a little misleading. It's so misleading that some scholars, when they look at the Torah and they want to work with the document theory, they say that this was written by what they call the priestly source, another author that was really bent on sacrifices. I have a theory, but then I'll hear you in 1 second, My theory is this: the focus or the axis of life in ancient times, in the time of Beit HaMikdash, was not Beit HaMikdash. We think that the temple was the center, but it was not. Because one would go to the temple 1 or 3 times a year. The center of life was one's home, the village, the farm. Really, one had to practice the Ve'ahavta Le'acha Kamocha, love the other as you love yourself.
I mean, that's the idea, to go from the local to the national.
Right. So what Hashem does is this: in the local, He gives us flexible laws, generalizations. Take care of your field, take care of the poor, without too many quantities and measurements. But because God knows that we as humans need to satisfy our craving of rituals and a little bit of the OCD, or what is called scrupulosity, we need everything to be in order. So she says, okay, I'll give you that in one place, in one time, done by one group of people. So, but that is okay, yet to be explored. I want to go 1 second back to the text and see what we have here. Maybe we will have time to look at the alternate endings. So look what is the dialogue between Avraham and Yitzhak here. Really striking contrast between this and the first Baitan. In the first Biyut, Yitzhak tells Avraham, remember that you will have to face Sarah. Think of the consequences. Don't take it lightly. Don't just think of God. Don't just think vertically between you and God. Think horizontally. Here it says, "Ra'a yahid ki waseh, na'am le'ora menuseh, avi oti kakeves ta'aseh lo tahmol ve'lo tuchaseh." The only son, when he realized that he's the lamb, he spoke to his father, who was now tested. Father, slay me like a ram. Have no mercy. Do not hesitate. He is encouraging him. Go ahead and do it. Why? Bi hafetz v'nichsof. Hashem wants me. Levavi lo lachasof. This is another graphic description. Just like the first one was extract the blood on the wall of the altar, here it says he wants to tear open my chest and expose my heart. That is not necessarily done in the Korban. It's more of a description that, if the author is aware of, in the Mishnah, it speaks about Orot Levuvin, that was a type of sacrifice for Avodah Zarah. So again, this is a kind of a counterbalance. It says Hashem wants to expose my heart to him, but also it's a metaphor to show the purity of heart. Im timna'ini sof, nishmati elav yesov. If you will withhold me from him, at the end anyway, he will take my soul. This is I think it borders on fatalism, where one says, I'm going to die anyway. So I'll die today by your hand for God, or I'll die tomorrow in an accident. Why? Let me die now in the hand of God. This is really determinism, fatalism, or also accepting this, that in this worldview, life in this world is just a means to go to the next world. There's no meaning for life here except for paving the path for eternity. And then he concludes with this: Yadav ve'raglav akad. He bound his hands and legs. Ve'harbo alav pakad. He drew his sword against him. Remember what I said about the usage of what is this sakin? The knife is called ma'achelet. It's the devouring knife, but here it's called sword. Why? Why is it called herev and not knife? It was not a sword. You can't really you can't do shechita with a sword, because we're talking about the generation that just emerged from the Crusades, the first Crusades. The sword of the Crusaders, even the cross that was depicted on the robe of the Crusaders looked like a long sword. So again, it's a counterbalance. You drew your sword against us, we draw a sword, and we make the sacrifice, and we are the ones who are really dedicated to God. He put it on the wood expeditiously. The fire is set. Yitzhak extends his neck willingly. No opposition. His supports Avraham ve'aviv nigash alav leshuchato l'shem be'alav. And the emphasis is that when he does a shechita, when he's going to slaughter him, it's l'shem be'alav. It's for the sake of his owner, and that refers to a halacha, a law regarding sacrifices, that what the kohen must perform the sacrifice for the sake of the owner. Otherwise, the sacrifice will be disqualified. So, to conclude, we saw two poems. One comes from the area of Morocco and Aleppo. So the Spanish, the Sephardic diaspora. One from the Ashkenazi German diaspora, more or less the same time.
But why is it included in as far as
Oh, I have no idea how it made its way into the Sephardic Siddur. This is really something to be.
Rabbi, we are Sydney, maybe.
It's something to be.
By Ashkenazi,
That's right.
it's not in our
It's
literature.
right.
Not
It
that-
it is something to be really investigated. Definitely, you could tell by the language that it's not a Sephardic piyut. There are certain usages that are not acceptable in the Sephardic poetry, like in the word hashu ve'alchu, nimharim. Nimhar is not memaher, so a Sephardic poet would not use it. But in any case, the important thing here is to see the different perspectives, which stem from different schools of thought, which are affected in turn by living under the cross or the crescent, Islam, Christianity or Islam. In the Ashkenazi liturgy, there's a strong influence of the martyrdom and the concept of sacrificing your life for God, to the extent of even using imagery such as the crown of thorns and the halo. But it's all converted to our terms. It's not Chas v'Shalom to say that there's paganism, but we're using their terms on our turf to say that we are as good as they are. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda ben Shmuel ibn Abbas questions the whole idea of sacrificing your life for God. And you see this later on playing out during the Crusades, which is contemporary, and where people sacrifice their lives for God, and later on during the expulsion from Spain, where the majority chose to either leave the country or go underground with their religion. So we will conclude. We have one more session for this series, which will take place between Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, but it will be not on a Tuesday evening, because Tuesday will be Rosh Hashanah. We'll do it on a Wednesday evening. And this coming Thursday, we'll have the second session of the discussion of David and Bathsheba, to see two different attitudes, two different approaches to Teshuvah from the same person, from David. So thank you for joining us, and we'll